Hello and welcome to the first of what will probably be many videos on this subject, music hacking in Super Metroid. First of all, let's just start off with a basic overview. The Super Nintendo, all of its music and sound effects are handled by the SPC 700 chip. Now the SPC 700 has 8 different channels which are each capable of playing separate sounds at the same time. However, this chip only has a tiny boot ROM, so the engine, the sound engine, and the sounds themselves must be transferred into its memory from the game ROM. Now I have my debugger here, which can actually look at the audio memory, which is what I am right now in the hex editor. ARAM stands for the audio memory. So it has 64K or 0 to FFFF, and in this limited range has to go all the different sound samples, the main engine, I wish I could speak. Basically everything related to sound has to fit in within this little 64K range. So let's just have a brief overview. I'm going to be touching on these things more later, but right now I'm going to tell you how the RAM is laid out in Super Metroid. The first about 500 bytes, well, OX 500, I'm just going to call it 500 because that's easiest for me and because that's the number I see. This range here contains pretty much, I guess I describe it as song and channel configuration. Like, it has things like volume for the channels and speed for the song. It's got a whole lot of data like that in there. So that's where all that stuff goes. Now the next 1000 bytes from 500 to 14FF, this is the echo buffer. It's rather small, as I'll demonstrate later, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Now at 1500 all the way down to 56E1, forget that. 1500 all the way down to 56E1, this is the main engine. So this big engine is what handles all the song data, all the processes for the sound effects, all that's handled here. Once you get past the engine, at 581E, this is the start of the song start addresses and note data. We'll get into this more later, but this goes from 581E to 6BFF. So all the notes for the music and all the pointers to those notes will fit in this region. Now starting at 6C00, this is the instrument definition table. Now, an instrument is different than a sample by a couple key factors. Basically it's a sample but with some extra definitions to it. But again, we'll get into that later. This is just a basic overview of the structure. Now at 6D00, this is the sample table. This points out, this tells the game where to look up each sample. And then at 6E00, this is the start of the actual sampled data, and it goes all the way to FFFF to the end. Now you might have noticed right at 6D00, the very first entry for the sample table, it's 6E00, so it points right to here as the first sample. But anyway, that's the whole structure. 6C00 to the end is samples. 6D00 is the start of the sample table. 6C00 is the start of instrument definitions. 581E, that is the song start addresses and note data. 1500 to 56E1, that is the main engine. 500 to 14FF is the echo buffer, and the beginning to 4FF is the song and channel configuration. Now, for a moment, I'd like to talk about the echo buffer. We'll be talking about this more when we get into actual music commands, but there is something I do want to touch on here, and that is, well, how disappointingly small just a mere 1,000 bytes is for the echo. I found when hacking in music, it's been very difficult to work with because I can't really get a very good sounding echo with only that much space. I mean, to demonstrate, I have a program here made by a buddy of mine, Math on Napkins. He's into Zelda hacking, but he does help people sometimes with hacking in general. And this is a program he made to listen to SPCs and pull some data about them. So I'm going to open here an SPC file from Super Mario RPG. Now down here on the bottom, this program shows the size of the echo buffer that Super Mario RPG has. You'll notice it's 4.5 times larger than what Super Metroid has. Basically, I'm just saying Super Mario RPG actually has a good sounding echo due to the size that it has to work with. Super Metroids, I have a very difficult time to get a good sound out of the echo. Now, when we do get to commands, there is a thing that lets you set the size of the echo buffer, but you can only set it to 1 or 2 instead of any other value, like say 3 or 4 or 8. The reason being is because the echo buffer size will increase or decrease based on what you set it to, but there's only this 1,000 bytes set aside for it. So if you use an echo buffer value of 3, well, it's just going to keep on going past the predetermined endpoint here, and it's going to start overriding the main engine and crash everything. Now this messed me up back when I was starting to get into music and writing songs, because the SNES 9X 1.51 emulator and earlier did not properly show this behavior. Like, I think it had the echo buffer RAM mapped separately from the rest of audio RAM, because those emulators would still work even if I set the size of the echo buffer, you know, to 3 or 4 or 5. I did songs with the echo buffer set to 08 and OA, which would obviously crash the game in any accurate emulator and on the real console. So fortunately they fixed that in I think 1.53, which is when I noticed the problems when I switched to 1.53 for SNES 9X. But I just wanted to point that out in case you're using an old emulator and it doesn't properly emulate this behavior. You could be writing music and thinking, oh hey, he's wrong, I can set the echo buffer as big as I want. And then no one can play your game because it crashes on more accurate emulators. So I just wanted to bring that up. Now, within the main engine, located at 1E66 in particular, scroll down there. Alright, this here is the pitch table, and it has 13 2-byte entries. Now these are like pitch multipliers that are used for every single sound effect and musical note in the game. Now if you're not that familiar with music theory, in Western music there's 12 different notes, and like each step, each note, like the frequency is about 1.06% higher than the last. So for instance, it's actually closer to 1.0595, but the difference is so tiny you wouldn't really notice. But if you notice, like if you multiplied this first entry, like 85F, by 1.06, you would end up at 8DE. Now, the original game never ever plays with the pitch table. These always stay the same. But I wanted to point out that you can actually play around with it if you want. Like, let's do that right now. I'm currently in a save room in terrain. Can't really see Samus. Alright, where am I? I think I hit Turbo A somehow. Well, that's no good. I don't remember what my hotkeys are, so bomb jumping for the win. Alright, I don't really have precise calculations on me, but let's just say that you wanted to, say, lower the pitch or raise the pitch for something. Like, just imagine if you fell in water and you wanted to lower the pitch a little bit to represent, you know, the fact that they're in water. You can do this using the pitch table and adjusting the values. So I'm not going to be precise here, but I'm basically just going to lower some values and let you hear what it kind of sounds like. By the way, if you're actually to do this, please pay attention to what the note should actually be instead of just doing what I'm doing here. Alright, so that should lower all the notes a little bit, and it'll sound weird because the notes won't be tuned properly anymore. You know, because I didn't take the time to actually calculate while this video was being recorded. I'll hopefully notice some things sound a little bit lower, like the ice beam. Now you can do drastic changes too. Like, this was the start. Once again, I'm not having anything calculated here, but see, let's just type in random things. Now this is something you should never do, honestly, but I'm just getting the idea in your head. Now if you figure out something that you'd like to do to make some place seem unnerving or distorted, you can kind of accomplish that effect by messing around with the pitch table and then later restoring it if you wished. Well, I would hope if you did what I did just there, you would restore it. But that's just something that you can do with the pitch table. It's not really a huge important thing, it's just something that I wanted to discuss and let you know that you had the option to do that. Alright, I am actually going to reset the emulator so you don't have to hear that again. Yes. Yes, it still has the stupid turbo A on. Actually, I'd probably stay in here. So, how does the memory in here in the audio RAM end up getting transferred from the game ROM? This is something that you're going to need to know if you're going to be doing music hacking. So let's look at Smile. And in the music, there's these two drop-down lists. It's called Collection and Play. Collection is kind of named okay. Play should be like the track pointer. Now the collection, what the collection contains is pretty much, well, everything the song needs. The collection contains the note data. It contains the needed music samples. It contains definitions for instruments. It contains a lot of stuff, really. Now, the collections, this drop-down is actually a pointer to a table that in the ROM starts at AF E7 E1. So let's actually go there and look at that. E7 E1. Alright, these are 3-byte pointers, and the bytes are reversed. So this looks like 0080 CF. Actually, this is a pointer to CF8000. This is the first track pointer. So, or not track pointer, but the first collection pointer. So that is what Smile, the room, is telling the game to load when you have this selected. And if you choose 03, the title screen, then it tells the game to load the data from here, which will be DO E2OD. Now looking at this will give you, well, I'll tell you how the transfers actually happen. So let's actually set the range properly. And then we'll go to, let me see, that was, yeah, DO E2OD. Alright, so this is location right here, DO E2OD. Now there will be 2 pointers here at this location. When the game reads that pointer and it tells it to go to here to start reading data and transferring it to audio RAM, first it reads these 2 bytes as the size of the data transfer. Now, the bytes are reversed once again, so this is not 4,000 bytes. This is telling it to transfer 40 bytes. And the next 2 bytes here are telling it where to transfer it to, which is 6060. Now, if you remember, I probably should have actually had it written up, but 6000 was the start of the sample table. So this being 6060 means that this is part of the sample table. These next 40 bytes are entries in the sample table. And I just wanted to point out, this first one right here is B516. So let's go down these 40 bytes. That's the end of the first block. However, if you do not specifically tell the game that the block transfer or the process of transferring blocks has ended, it will continue transferring on blocks on and on. And so it does here. It has another block transfer starting here. This one is a big one. It's 4 ACA bytes to transfer. And like I pointed out before, this one is transferred to B516, which is in sample data. So I pointed that out up right here because that was the sample table. The first entry in the sample table where it was transferring to was referring to what this sample data here, it's referring to this sample getting transferred into RAM basically. And that's basically how it goes, is it gets transferred in blocks like this. Here it's transferring an absolutely huge block. It can transfer pretty much, well, anything that the SPC can fit in its memory. But how do you tell it to stop transferring blocks if it will just transfer this block and then after that it'll transfer this one, and then you imagine if there's another block after this, it'll transfer that? Well, basically you have to null the pointers out. So if I didn't want it to transfer the sample data or anything else past the first thing, I would replace those with zeros. So basically when you're writing your own custom music, you'll need to stick those zeros at the end once you do your block transfers to tell the game to stop loading more data, or else it'll just keep sending data into the SPC and it'll probably eventually overwrite something important and crash the game. So that's how transfers work, but heading back to 8F for a little bit, back to this collection table here. I wanted to point out here this collection table only goes up to 48, which is I think 25 different songs with 3 bytes apiece, or 3 byte pointers. This can be expanded. Now the reason why you see me here in the debug room is because the table is actually located right before the debug room. So if you cannibalize the debug room or decide to override it, you can expand this table, and it's not really supported in Smile yet. But I think in Smile JX, I'm hoping that the creator of that jam will be able to give you the option to expand beyond just 48 in the drop down list. For now, you'd have to go into a hex editor and tell the game to load pointers beyond 48 that way. But I just wanted to let you know that the table supports more than just those 25 songs if you want to have more than 25 songs in your Metroid hack. Alright, so then what about display? Well, 581E and audio RAM. Let's look at that. Oops, it's just RAM. The track tells it the play tells it which track of music data to play. And the very first one starts at 581E, or here, which is basically just a null pointer. It doesn't stop whatever it was doing before. But if you choose 01, which is, let's see, which is a sound that plays when Samus first loads from a save station, then it has a pointer to 530E. So that's just telling us that the song data for same as appearing from a save station starts at 530E in audio RAM. Now I'm not really gonna go over it too much yet, but basically there's going to be a big series of pointers. For example, that pointer pointed here, which is another pointer which points to here, which contains a whole list of pointers and a null pointer there. And I'll get more into that once you're actually writing music and you know where all the pointers go and what they do. But that's what the track does. Or I guess it's the play. I don't know, I wish this was called track instead of play just because it'd make more sense to me. It should be track. But going back to 581E. Now in Smile, once again, there's an artificial limitation. You see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And I like this. If you press down, it says 80. The truth is, the game engine can handle up to 80 separate tracks. Now, not all the song collections are programmed for this because note data tends to start right after the track pointer. And not all songs have, for example, a song 2. So I don't think credits does, for example. So if I chose this selection, it would probably try to start reading note data as pointers, and then it would end up crashing. But if you do program your song or write your song so that it has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different songs within it, then once again you'd have to use a hex editor, and I'm hoping that SmileJX will eventually be able to give you the option to choose any value you want that's valid. And then it'd just be your responsibility to figure out what's safe to use and what's not. Well, I think that's about good enough for this episode, so thank you for watching. I hope you learned something, and I hope you will return next time for some more music hacking videos. Maybe, I'm not sure what we'll go over yet, but rest assured I will get you to the point where you will be writing and compiling songs for your Super Metroid hacks. Thank you, and goodbye.